You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for music lovers. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn more about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. Note to my listeners, there is a little bit of graphic language in this episode, but also some mention of murder and suicide, so please tune out if those are sensitive topics for you. Today I talk with my guest Katie Dee about the Scandinavian garage punk scene, empowering women in music, and running a college radio station. You're listening to Stream Ran Red by Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens.
Mama gave up baby John the day that he was born. Some rich folks came and took him in, they raised him as their own. We never thought, we never dreamed we'd live to see the day when John would come and take revenge, 'cause they'd send him away. And the stream ran red, and the stream ran red. He came to the reunion, and the stream ran red.
Alright, so this is now technically episode 2 of Tapestry, and to all my listeners out there, I have one of my best friends ever sitting in the room. This is Katie Dee. Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens. Katie Dee is the only member of Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens, but I am very glad she's here, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but then I have to tell the story of everything that happened before you came over.
Hi, I'm Katie Dee. I'm a Pittsburgh-based Gothic-Americana songstress.
Yes, you are. My favorite Gothic-Americana songstress. So just to give everybody an idea of kind of what our relationship is like, this should say it all, really, but before Katie came over today, we decided to go to dinner because she used to live right up the road from me, and then she got a nice new promotion and changed jobs, and we decided to catch up and hang out. And we went to go to a local Thai restaurant in my neighborhood, and when we got there, it was closed. So then we drove to a different restaurant that was in another neighborhood for Indian food, and when we arrived, there was a sign on the door saying that it had been shut down due to a fire. And then a giant bee stung me in the leg, and I went into shock and was in a lot of pain and crying in my car. And then we drove to a different Thai place up the road, and we get there, and there's a fucking sign on the door. Or no, I'm sorry, it's just that they're closed on Sunday. So we went to 3 restaurants and then finally went to a 4th.
Thank God for the 4th restaurant.
Yeah. Like, it was just a nightmare, and I don't know if there's, like, some fate that something terrible is going to happen during the recording of this episode. Side note, it did. I got a bee sting, we're very full and very sleepy, but I digress. That is my introduction here. So, Katie, I have to remember that not everybody knows about you, so I just kind of want you to walk me through your musical background, your upbringing, all that stuff.
Sure. I've been doing music all of my life. My parents have tapes of me playing the piano when I was like 18 months old. I was playing Christmas carols. Like, I've been doing music longer than I can actually remember. I started out playing the piano. That was my main instrument until probably I was about 5, and then my dad and I started Suzuki violin lessons. The Suzuki method is an ear training method. And it doesn't involve reading music at all. I actually never really learned how to read music, but we did that because he promised me that if we did that together, he would join Indian princesses with me, and only one of those things came true, and it was that we would take Suzuki violin lessons together for a year, and we did that, and then I was in my school's orchestra playing violin through college. I was in my college orchestra as well. Now I'm kind of a musical mercenary in regards to my violin. I'll go around with different friends of mine who do have groups, and I'll play the violin for them when they need be. But I got my first guitar when I was 13. It was really like just physically too large for me, so I didn't really start playing it until I was 16 or so. I got another guitar when I was 16 when I was going through my metal phase, and it's a black electric guitar with silver inlaid flames on the fretboard.
Oh, I was gonna say, I thought it might look like the one hanging on my wall.
It's like a little more like intense. And I got a heavy metal distortion pedal, and I used to like splice Gregorian chants and like scream into the microphone kind of thing.
Batushka, you're like Batushka.
I thought it was amazing. So I did that, and I played in a punk, garage punk band. We were like Soviet themed and all of our like MySpace stuff. When I was in high school, called the Ready or Not. It was an all-girl garage punk band with a Soviet theme.
I actually feel like I forgot that, but that's amazing.
Yeah, the
so you're
MySpace
like Pussy
is
Riot.
still up there.
Pussy Riot.
And then I played in a band in college called the Origami Clouds that didn't really ever go anywhere, but I met some interesting people, none of whom I'm still in touch with. And I formed that via LiveJournal, actually. I posted on LiveJournal at my college, and these were the people that responded, and they became my band for longer than I think any of us would have liked. It took a long time for that band to break up. Like, I went overseas for a study abroad, and I was like, it'll be gone when I come back. And it wasn't gone. Sorry, folks. So then I kind of was doing my own thing for a while. There was talk in my high school band was going to get back together, and it never happened. And then I played with a few different friends on a more casual basis, but I was kind of trying to find my own direction for a while. Like, I couldn't really play garage punk songs as like a solo artist. It's just kind of like weird to get up there and play that kind of music without anyone behind you. And it's also kind of challenging to be like a solo woman musician. So I decided one day, it was kind of like a joke, I was playing D&D with my friends. Our DM, actually, Mike, was a Boy Scout leader, like an Eagle Scout, and he was talking about quaking aspen trees, and we just liked the word so much. He was telling us about how they clone themselves, and the largest organism in the entire world is a quaking aspen tree.
Of course he was.
Yeah, he's a nerd, but he's really cool. And we were just kidding around, like, wouldn't it be funny if that was your band, Katie Dee? Because Quaking Aspens, again, look like many organisms but are one, and I am a band of one. In the tradition of like Nine Inch Nails or Bright Eyes, I am Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens.
Did not know that.
Yeah, those are both.
I finally got the
technically
Quaking
solo
Aspens
artists.
origin story.
Yeah, so it started out as a joke. I wrote the first song as Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens called Yonder when I was riding around helping cut grass at my grandparents' vacant farm property. And I wrote this song while I was riding around, and I was like, that was kind of cool, and everyone liked it, so I kept doing more, and released our first EP on Noisetrade in 2013. That's Yonder and Other Stories, and you did some nice art for that. And then
I actually did not even finish doing all the album artwork for this.
Someday. And then I did a 2017 EP called The Sweet Revenge of Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens. Currently, I'm working on a sea-themed EP called From the Sea, where there's a bunch of like dark and murderous sea shanties, and simultaneously I'm kind of accidentally working on some other songs which are going to become an EP called Graveyard Shift, because I've accidentally written a lot of songs not on the sea shanty theme in the past year. I've been playing more and more at some local festivals. This year I played at Deutschtown Music Festival in the North Side and Millvale Music Festival in Millvale. I played at the wonderful Black Forge Coffee House in Allentown. Highly recommend. And I played at the Garfield Art House in Garfield. It was also a very nice show.
Was that Garfield Artworks?
No.
That place is closed now.
I played Garfield Artworks with my band, my power pop band.
Did you happen to go to the bathroom while you were there?
No.
Oh my god, that was the scariest bathroom I've ever used.
It was like under the stairs, right?
Yeah, and there was no door, and you just kind of crawled under
the old Mr. Smalls.
Yeah, like I don't know what it is. All these concert venues are like, we want to make you fear for your life while you have to pee. Do it fast.
Yeah,
like they have
worse than, a scary bathroom.
A little curtain that you hook into the hook on the other side of the stall or whatever. That was okay. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to get that out of the way. That was the scariest bathroom ever.
I totally forgot to mention being a part of VARA. That was summer 2008. I was in a power pop duo with my friend Caleb, who plays the accordion.
Wait, what was it called?
VARA. WARRE. His accordion was a VARA brand accordion.
Okay.
Or maybe it was like Warren, but the N was missing. But that was our band we had just for that summer. And I played both guitar and bass in that band.
How did you do that?
On different instruments on different songs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and in my band in college, the Origami Clouds, I played the bass in that as well.
I always forget that you're a bass player too.
Yeah.
Like, do you have a preference? Because I know you mostly play guitar now. You play acoustic guitar, but actually, okay, because I'm not a strings player. Guitar and bass, you basically play the same frets, and it's all the same arrangement, correct?
A bass is tuned exactly the same as an acoustic cello.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That is
so
a fact I did
both
not know.
actually, the guitar and the bass have the same low notes. So, like when I was in my band in high school, we would be tuning our instruments. Like my bass player Amy and I would tune her bass and my guitar to the same pitch, so we knew that we would be in the same like key.
Yeah.
So yeah, but bass has 4 strings. They're not the same as the first 4 strings of the guitar, but like it's doing the same as a cello. I don't know if the guitar has any like equivalent.
But it was pretty
yeah,
easy for you to go, like, once
Yeah.
you grew into your 13-year-old guitar at the age
Yeah.
of 16, when did you start doing bass stuff, though?
It was probably my brother got a bass one year for Christmas, and like so we had it around the house. And basically, when I formed my band via LiveJournal, I realized that I had accidentally recruited several people who also played the guitar. So I thought I knew an instrument that's not a guitar. So I thought, well, I'll just play my brother's bass that he never uses. So that worked out really well.
Okay.
It's still kicking around. I own a lot of instruments, so that's nice. I mean, mainly I was raised on like until I was in 5th grade, we only really listened to classical music and show tunes in my house. So that's like a lot of my musical background. When I was in 5th grade, like my family bought like the whole Beatles discography. So like I got really into like 60s music, and from there I got into I actually jumped right into the Scandinavian garage punk scene that was coming out in the early aughts when I was in like late middle school.
What are some bands in the Scandinavian garage punk scene? Because I don't know
like
any.
Boys of a Generation, The Hives. The Hives really made it really big out of that. 59 Times the Pain. Especially out of Sweden, there were a lot of garage punk bands. Sahara Hot Nights. I think they're out of Denmark, maybe.
Huh.
That's an all-woman garage punk
You're
band.
stumping me. I know my music pretty well, but I'm woefully uneducated on the Scandinavian garage punk scene.
I can tell you more. Yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I feel like I'll always kind of be like a punk rock person at heart. I was visiting a school actually before the school year ended, and I was talking to I guess one of the teachers there also was in a band, and he was like probably our parents' age, and he was saying, oh yeah, it seems like all like old punk rockers turn into country musicians. Not that you're old or anything, but I was like, yeah, I guess that's kind of how it is.
Okay, so that's actually a good segue into my next question, which was gonna be sort of 2-part. Like, you said Gothic-Americana, but how would you sort of describe your music? And then 2, I know, just from knowing you personally, that Murder by Death is basically your favorite band, and I can see a lot of their influence. How did you find Murder by Death when you started to sort of form your own musical identity?
Yeah, I actually had a subscription to the popular like alt music magazine Alternative Press when I was in late high school, and then eventually my parents canceled the subscription because they thought it had too many swear words in it. But before they did that, I read about Murder by Death because actually they were originally managed by the same company that managed My Chemical Romance, which of course people of our era.
I didn't know that.
It was Eyeball Records, which was actually associated in some capacity with the emo band Thursday.
Oh.
I think one of their members
I'm getting
was
schooled
like,
right now.
No, it's all good.
No, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, so they actually, the first MBD song I ever heard was Killbot 2000, which was for free on Last FM when I went to check them out. And if you listen to their first album, As Murder by Death, their former name was Little Joe Gold, but their first album, As Murder by Death, they do have a song where they feature Gerard Way of My Chemical Romance. So it's a really good gateway drug for like emo kids like myself to get into alternative country music. So there was a real connection there, but there was a real bridge that was built. And I was my grandpa on my mom's side, my grandpa Al was really into like the original murder ballads, like early Johnny Cash, or like the first murder ballad I ever heard was on a CD that he lent to us of Burl Ives, with Long Black Veil. So I'd heard this stuff when I was a kid and like I liked it, but then as an 18-year-old I really got into Murder by Death, and they were like the first band that I went with my friends from college to go and see. Like I got all my friends from school interested in it. So I basically just read about them in a magazine. I thought, they're like influenced and associated with other things that I like, and like kind of happened into the Gothic-Americana scene.
I honestly never would have ever learned about that genre or styling of music had I not met you, to be totally honest. And then I got turned on to Murder by Death from you, and like I grew up listening to country, but I only ever thought of country as this monolithic, twangy, let's sing about trucks and beer and girls type of stuff, and you kind of go one layer deeper into the sort of dark and morbid folk stuff like MBD, and it just gets so much more interesting.
Yeah, my mom had a bunch of cassettes, speaking of like the storytelling aspect of it, when we were growing up, that she played, that were all just like old Appalachian stories, and a lot of them were like very dark.
Well, like, okay, so like John Denver, that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, like, this was like pure storytelling though. It was like tapes and tapes of these stories, or like these old songs. Like there was this one called The Squire, about this woman trying to like outwit this guy who was interested in her so she wouldn't have to marry him, and like it was funny, but it was also kind of like dark and weird. And like, so we had that growing up, and I took a class my freshman year of college that was completely on Appalachian storytelling. It's interesting if you look at like Irish folk music, which my parents were also like very into when I was young. We played us a lot of like Irish folk songs. There is actually an Irish folk song with my actual real name in it.
Oh.
It's the Ballad of Mick McGuire. Has my actual like full name in it as one of the characters in the story.
Oh, that's sweet. It was meant to
so
be.
check that out. So like, it's interesting to see how all those things connect, and a lot of the music that is Gothic-Americana were like the story of Tom Dooley, or like the song about the famous song about the Titanic.
Yeah.
The
What's
great
the
ship.
Gordon Lightfoot, right?
Yeah. Like, there's all these songs that are there. If you think of way back to the Middle Ages, this was how the news is being spread, and this kind of traveled with like the Scottish, Irish, English immigrants to the Appalachian Mountains, and became the modern day basis of the like country music tradition.
So this is a great place to let everybody know, what did you study in college?
I majored in German, the language, and European history. I double majored.
Dang, there we go. This is why I love Katie, because she's history buff like me, but you're also a music nerd like me.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I didn't know that about the whole folk kind of trail. Like you think about songwriting as a way to tell a story, but I think a lot of times people tend to think of lyrics and stuff as like, oh, I just need to get my feelings out, or I need to whine about something, but it's kind of a beautiful lost art to be able to use music as sort of a way to like romanticize either a different time or a particular event in history. You just don't get that a whole lot anymore. So how does that play into sort of the motifs you write about, and also the fact that you're a librarian, so you deal with stories a lot every day. What about this storytelling aspect of music is something that you gravitate towards?
Yeah, I think lately what's been influencing my music a lot is, especially with the EP from last year, is both the Québécois folk scene in Canada, like the Le Vent du Nord, and there's also a group called Les Tempêtants, and that we actually had a Québécois band visit Pittsburgh last year that I got to go and see. I'll have to fact check on my ticket exactly who that was, but I believe that the band that I saw was Les Tempêtants. But my dad and my brother saw Le Vent du Nord when they were in Slovenia and brought a CD back, and that's all these old stories. And also German Lieder, which were basically like the original emo music. Like if you think of like, my favorite song cycle is probably Winterreise, which is by Franz Schubert, or Die schöne Müllerin. And both of those are like tragic stories. Like in Die schöne Müllerin, it's about this guy who's a crush on this girl who works at this mill, and he goes, follows the river to like be where she is, and then he finds out that she likes someone else, so he drowns himself.
Oh,
but it's like
great.
a whole album, like kind of like a concept album, but this is like the 1800s.
Yeah.
It's just like a person singing in a piano,
Prague
telling the
before Prague.
story of this guy having a crush on this girl, and like different songs, like going through the whole relationship until he kills himself. And then the last song is like the river kind of singing an elegy about this guy who killed himself by drowning himself in the river. And like that kind of stuff, like I've never really, like I try my hand at writing fiction. Like I'm a poet, but like I'm a haiku poet. Like I like to write about nature. Like I try my hand at writing fiction.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to sit down and like write a story. Like I like characters. A lot of what you can do in the Gothic-Americana songs that I write, they're kind of like character studies more than stories per se. Like I just try and get in the head of like a character, and then like I see the rest of the song like through that character's eyes, and it kind of builds a story like around that character.
Okay, and I mean, now I'm familiar with some of your songs because you sing them a lot at parties and, being friends, I come out and support you and see all this stuff, but
Yeah.
like, um, so is it kind of storytelling for the sake of putting a good story out there and telling it through the eyes of the character, or are they sort of these parallels to what's happening in your own life? I mean, based on some of your songs, I know I'm kind of leading you to the answer
Yeah.
yes, but I would like to know more about that.
I would say that the majority of my songs have like nothing to do with like how I'm feeling when I write them. Like oftentimes, one of my best places to write songs is driving in the car. Like if I'm riding in the car and like say I'm listening to the news and I'm bored of listening to the news, and at my old job I used to spend a lot of time driving like for work, and I would drive through the countryside a lot because I would drive out to Greensburg, and it would be like maybe an hour of driving through like backcountry roads and just see different things. Like one time I was driving and I just saw all these people like filling up like old milk jugs of water by the side of the road, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if that was like the spring in the book Talk Everlasting by Natalie Babbitt, like if people were able to get eternal life by drinking out of this. And I kept driving and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there was like an evil person who knew this and they obtained eternal life for themselves by doing that. So then I was like, let me write a song about that evil person all while I'm driving in the car. So I like doing things like that. I like kind of like projecting these stories onto other people. Like more if I'm writing poems, I'll kind of like focus more on my own life. But for me, it's always been kind of like a cool release from like the everyday of like thinking about emotions and like all that kind of stuff. To just kind of write these silly stories based on this random idea that I have.
Okay.
It is kind of a way, I guess it is kind of a way of like dealing with life, but without directly like dealing
Yeah,
with it.
I mean that's the great thing about fiction, and you can say openly or completely conceal the fact that you're in this story. And a friend of mine, he kind of was helping me work on some writing stuff when I was still actively writing a lot more, and he always said you have to remember that whether you want them to or not, the characters you create always have a piece of you within them. So that's why I was sort of looking for a little bit of clarity, because I know just with some of the stuff you've gone through that some of your songs are really related to that. However, I know that stuff like Stream Ran Red, which I'm thinking I'll play as my intro music, is like, that's about a guy who goes crazy at a family reunion and kills everybody. So I'm assuming you don't have any family members that have gone off the deep end.
And like no one in I'm related to will hopefully ever react with those kinds of events. But it's interesting to like just like think up these random situations. Like I do think a lot of like the main characters in my songs, like with probably the exception of that song and think of any of the other ones at the top of my head, but really with the exception of that one, the main characters of my songs are women. So like there is that viewpoint. It's a lot about like my song Yonder, which is about like a woman murdering her husband because he's like a nasty drunk. Like those kinds of things. Like I try and write like strong female characters even though it's just like within a song. So
Still.
it's all about like that kind of thing is important to me, like showing like empowered female characters and like women making their own kinds of like choices in these stories, and like being a woman writing songs about female characters. I think that's important. I wouldn't really necessarily know how to like even the Stream Ran Red, it's narrated by presumably, although it's never explicitly said, like a woman character, even though it's actually about the male family member who goes off the deep end. So it is interesting to do things like that. And like kind of do take it from like a kind of a weird way, like feminist standpoint.
Well, I always get a sort of feminist vibe from your stuff, and I appreciate that about it. But I know you personally, and I know your viewpoints on it and stuff. But so you're pretty heavily involved in things like girls rock and just women's issues in general. How does your music sort of fit into that?
Through my music, it's been interesting to meet like a variety of other like women musicians and like kind of like women like promoters. Like there's the woman who runs the Garfield Art House venue, or like the women in the local metal band Blue Clutch. Like you just meet, like being a woman out there and doing music, you meet other women out there doing music. or Miss Marcross, who's been doing a lot of promotion here in Pittsburgh in the past year. Like, I think because there's, like, statistically, like, less of us that I know of in the local music scene, like, it's, like, if you're a woman in music in the area, like, you automatically make friends with a lot of other women in music, and that's a really powerful and good thing. Like, in Pittsburgh, I've never been involved with this, but I know that the festival Lady Fest, which happens every year in June in Pittsburgh, directly supports Girls Rock Pittsburgh.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so there are actually women-run music events in the city that support women-run organizations that support girls in music.
What is the rundown kind of on Girls Rock? Because I only know a little bit about it.
Girls Rock is actually an international
Okay.
Organization. It has branches, like, well, most of its branches are in the U.S., but it has branches in Europe as well. Girls Rock Pittsburgh has been going on since 2013. I got involved in it in 2014, and it's basically it's a week-long camp where girls between the ages of 8 to 18 who don't have to have prior music experience can come and learn to play an instrument over the course of the week.
Oh,
and
that's
they
awesome.
also get, like, into a little band, and they can name themselves, and they get to screen print t-shirts of their band.
That's sweet.
Write a song together, and at the end of the week they all, like, each of the little bands performs a concert.
Mm-hmm.
And it just is kind of like, it's a nonprofit, so, like, it's self-sustaining through, like, sale, like, the merch, and there's a lot of different fundraisers, like Lady Fest that happen, and other different concerts around town, or dance parties and things like that support Girls Rock Pittsburgh. Last year, through Girls Rock Pittsburgh and Girls Right Pittsburgh, its sister organization, we did a few other local musicians and I, Sarah Brenberg and blank on her name because I'm in front of a microphone. Tessa, sorry, I can't remember her last name. Who's also a librarian. Worked with some other women at the Warhol Museum in order to make a songwriting workshop, and the girls wrote lyrics to songs, and then the three of us had to come up with melodies to these songs in a half hour and then play them for the girls.
Oh, God.
So that was pretty intense. It was really cool to be able to do that in the Warhol space, which they do a lot of stuff for teens at the Warhol. It's a really nice organization. Tessa Barber, that was her name. Sorry, Tessa, for blanking on your name live. So that's been, it's just so neat through organizations like Girls Rock, meeting other women musicians out there who, we want to advocate for younger women musicians, because it's not always, like, the easiest world out there being, like, especially, like, a young teen girl who wants to do music. So, like, I think it's good to even just have them playing on this stage for, like, one night, these girls that are in Girls Rock. Like, it's such a boon.
Yeah, it's very empowering. I mean, everything you said I agree with, because I find, even though we kind of live in somewhat different genres and different worlds, I mean, we've gone to shows together, but, I'm more in the metal scene and you're more in the alt-rock indie scene, but you sort of have this, like, gravitational pull towards other women that you see in a crowd or something, and I always end up striking up a conversation with them. You're like, hey, you're one of 6 women here.
Yeah.
And it's just how it is. Like, I know a lot of your music and just your profession in general is obviously all about empowerment for creative minds in general, but what's sort of your best advice you can give girls and women in general who want to become a songwriter or want to become a musician?
I think that, I think it's important to be willing to, like, go on. You have to be willing to get up there in front of people, and that is the scariest part. Like, even if you're just staying at home, like, practicing in front of the mirror. I mean, I've been doing this since I was in 9th grade, and, like, that first time I went up on a stage in front of people, which was, like, a local, like, church open mic, was, like, one of the scariest feelings, because, like, all the people's eyes are on you. Like, maybe you're one of, like, a few girls or women in the room, but, like, just being willing to do that, and, like, maybe you'll make a fool out of yourself the first time, or occasionally I messed up in front of the public, but, like, my dad's best advice in that respect was, no one's really gonna know if you messed up except for you.
Exactly.
And that's, I think, the thing that holds so many people of any gender back is just, like, the unwillingness to, like, mess up in front of other people. Like, there is a sense of humor about a lot of my songs, even though they're very dark, because I have a very dark sense of humor.
Yes.
So, like, you know, if you have to find a way to make people laugh in order to feel like they're laughing with you, not at you, that's important too. But, like, being willing to take that first step and, like, you know, if you feel like there's, like, a gatekeeping kind of energy, like, doing the best you can to, like, kind of ignore that. Like, bring friends with you if you can. Or, you know, bring your parents with you. If nothing else, there's nothing. I mean, my parents are, like, my biggest fans. They wear my merch, like, all the time. Like, it's so cute.
My first guest, Eric, had his wife mentioned that her mom listens to his music when she does yoga. So, you know, it's, hey, whatever your measure of appreciation is.
Exactly. Like, don't be afraid to, like, get your parents and your friends on board. They're, like, there will always be your biggest fans.
That's very true. That's very true. I like what you said about just, you know, you have to have the courage to go out and do it. But that kind of makes me think, though, what you said about you're the only person that's going to know if you screw up. I tend to think of your personality as very extroverted. And we're very opposite that way. But how did you finally make that first leap from, okay, you know, I feel like I've practiced enough and I want to share this with the world. How did you make that first jump?
I'd say it was just an issue of, like, there wasn't enough time to, like, think about it. Because the first open mic I ever went to was because, this is kind of, like, digressing a little, but I had skipped a grade in German. Like, I passed the test in order to, like, skip out of German 2 and straight into German 3. So I was in a German class with a bunch of kids a year ahead of me when I was in 9th grade, and some of the kids in that class were involved in, like, this local open mic scene, and, like, oh my gosh, the cool 10th graders invited me to come to this. So I was kind of like, okay, well, I have to go and, like, do something. Originally I was going to go and watch, but as you said, I'm kind of an extrovert. It's hard for me to just go and watch other people getting on a stage. I was thinking, yeah, I want to do that too. So just kind of being impulsive like that, I was like, yeah, I'm going to go up there and do it now, you know. Not overthink it, just, like, commit to it, and, like, kind of the rest was history. I made sure I went to a college that had, like, a very robust open mic scene and things like that, so.
That is a good segue to my other question, and I never really knew about this because I didn't go to college with you, but you were a DJ.
I was.
Yeah, so you ran a radio station at Allegheny. Like, sort of, what were your duties? Did you get to choose all the music, and, like, who was your audience? Just tell me about that.
Yeah, I started being a DJ the second semester of college, and I was a DJ all the entire rest of the time that I was at Allegheny. I had a specialty show, which was called Katie Dee's Radio Little England, and I played exclusively British music. So some people had, like, more of, like, a variety show, and with that format, they were kind of, like, required to play, like, X number of songs from this genre, X number from that genre. But mine was what they called a specialty show, and it was 2 hours a week. And sometimes I got great time slots, and sometimes I was in the campus center, like, surrounded by, like, drunk zombie people, like, depending on the semester.
How did they divvy that up? Like,
it was just, I think it was really just luck of the draw.
Okay.
Like, you just kind of got whatever every semester. You know, I bet they, I don't really know how they did it. I should ask one of my friends who was, like, an officer of the station, but I feel like they kind of just pulled names out of a hat and, like, gave people time slots in that order.
Okay.
But yeah, mine, sometimes I had friends who would partner with me on it depending on the semester, but, like, sometimes it was just me, and I would play all English, Scottish, Welsh music, especially, like, I have a real soft spot for 70s punk. And, like, 60s garage rock from the UK. So, like, I play a lot of that kind of music.
Sex Pistols?
I love them. They're great. The Clash. Like, a lot of, like, freak beat from the UK. Like, The Creation.
I don't even know what freak beat is. Like, there's a lot of things I'm learning here.
It's, like, kind of like, they call it more stuff like that in Europe. Because, like, that was kind of like garage rock. Because garage rock was ultimately American blues music filtered through, like, British invasion back into America.
Okay.
But, like, in the UK, like, I've also heard the term freak beat. There's this really influential collection on Rhino Records, which the bassist Amy of my high school band introduced me to when we were in high school, called Nuggets. And it's all freak beat and, like, weird, like, UK and European, like, pop that's kind of British invasion, Beatlesy, but, like, never made it. And my sign-off song, which was the only song on the show that I would ever play that wasn't British, but like no one would ever know this, was a freak beat song called Words Enough to Tell You. And it was actually by a Swedish
you liar.
freak beat band called the One... what were they called? I'll send it to you. I can't remember what they were called. It was like a clever pun name, like the Wonders, but I don't remember exactly what it was off the top of my head.
Oh, the Wonder, like they made that movie about it.
Yeah,
and I remember every time I kept reading, I'm like the Oneaters, like
yeah, it was like that. But it wasn't exactly. There was another like good pun name, but it was like such a cute song. That would be my sign-off song every time I had the show. And that was a really great space to be in the radio station because you just be exposed, like music is all around you. And like each of the descriptions, like I was a CD reviewer there for a few semesters when we would get CDs in the mail and they would need people to like review them, like listen to them. We had to make sure they didn't say any of the bad words you can't say on the radio too. But because if you played a bad word, you literally had to stop the song, apologize to the FCC, and then continue playing the song. It only happened to me twice, and I was like, oh, I'm going to jail. So people need to be careful when they're reviewing the CDs for the station. And make sure it doesn't say the bad radio words.
What are the bad radio words? You can say them on my podcast. I don't care.
You can't say goddamn on the radio.
What?
You can say damn, but you can't say goddamn, for example.
What?
Yeah, there's a whole list. I mean, obviously, you know,
oh my God,
shit, etc. Things you can't say on TV, you also can't say on the radio. But yeah, so you know, put goddamn in your song, and now it's unplayable.
Okay.
So that it was interesting because every semester, like the guy who was in charge of the radio station would be like, okay, here's the words you can't say on the radio, and then say them, and everyone would kind of be like, so it was fun. And I did really have a lot of control over what I played, and I was introduced to a lot of new music just being in there for 2 hours a week. Like, you know, you find your songs, you'd be in there, like, looking at all the CDs and checking them out yourself, listening to them in your dorm, and, like, you know, I got to learn how to use a lot of the audio equipment that was in there. There was also, like, an AIM chat that was the radio station's screen name, and, like, sometimes random people would, like, talk to you while you were in there.
Great.
They were, like, lonely.
Well, yeah, this
and,
was
like,
what? This was in, like,
yeah,
2007?
Like, yeah.
Something like that?
Yeah, okay. Like, it was weird. Like, I actually, like, made some decent acquaintances because they randomly, like, IM'd the, like, radio station with, like, their people problems, and, like, they got me.
So you're like spinning some Beatles over here, and you're like helping this guy through his breakup on AIM.
Really, that's like my life. So yeah, there was like kind of like, you know, full service, and you know, people could call in and request too. I mean, the AIM was supposed to be for requesting music, but it was often like weird, like a non-moral support. But yeah,
even though it ran out of Allegheny College, was it broadcast to the greater Meadville area?
Yeah, it transmitted to Meadville. You could pick it up if you were on Route 79. If you get, I went to Allegheny College. If you got to where Lake Wilhelm is, which is like a swamp. So I think its broadcast was probably about a like 10 to 15 mile radius at the most. But like we would get people who worked at there's a dog food factory in Meadville, or a Channel Lock Tools factory.
Meadville's a strange place. I know it's the home to the only Tim Hortons, like...
You know there are 2 Tim Hortons in Meadville.
What?
So they have like I wanted to go to for my birthday every year. We used to go to Tim Hortons.
Sorry, I went off topic there, but that's like
all
I know about
I mean,
Meadville.
I hope they're gonna sponsor your podcast in the future and send us free coffee.
Hey, I would be down with that.
Yeah, so I learned a lot about that kind of stuff. And I mean, really, I've been recording my stuff on cassette tapes since I was in high school until 2012 when I got an iPad Mini, which had GarageBand on it. So like, sometimes to convert all those tapes. But like that was really like a huge tech thing for me. I took a music tech class when I was in high school, but like obviously like by 2011, everything I learned in like 2005 was like way out. But like I did learn a lot about like the audio levels and like splicing tracks. Like I have an okay background in that kind of stuff, and like I don't have anything real technical I record my songs on. I'd like to like in the future like become a little less lo-fi, and it kind of works for my vibe.
Yeah,
but like you know. Financially, it is kind of like, it would be cool. I know that in the city we have a lot of spaces, especially for teens. Like as a teen librarian, we have a lot of great spaces for teens to record like more in a more professional setting. Yeah. I think it'd be really great if those kinds of maker spaces could be expanded to adults.
That's very true. I can only think of 2 studios that are kind of publicly available in Pittsburgh. There's that one in Etna in that big, right? It's in that big warehouse. like Guardian Storage and their studios underneath it. And there's that maker's shop place up in Allentown.
Yeah.
But your music and your sensibilities and stuff have always been kind of DIY.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that kind of rolls into how you teach music, I guess. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, from being your friend, I know a little bit about each of your jobs as a librarian, but you've always kind of used music as a teaching tool in your job, right?
Yeah, and it's given me, I mean, I've written really a ton of different songs in my day, but like, and I did mostly children's librarian work for almost 6 years. I would kind of be like the human jukebox. I ran an musical story time for the kids where I would have them playing a bunch of different simple like percussive instruments like tambourines or little drums or rhythm sticks. And they would just randomly like shout things out that they wanted me to do a song about. Like I have a song called Spider-Man Toothpaste because they wanted a song about Spider-Man Toothpaste. I have a song about the bumpy train because this kid wanted a song about his family riding on a bumpy train. So like I wrote a bunch of songs like
Just
for these kids.
Improv.
Yeah, on the spot, which is like a fun thing for me. Improv. Kid improv, and then I've written like some songs with kids in mind. Like I used to run a baby story time. I didn't really like a lot of the songs that were out there for babies. No offense, baby music composers. But I wrote a song called "Hi Hi Wave Your Hand," and it also had a counterpart for the end of story time called "Bye Bye Wave Your Hand." And like kids will like I had one of my kids from story time was at the WYAP singer songwriter competition I was playing last night, and actually her mom was like, yeah, she was really hoping that you would sing "Hi Hi Wave Your Hand." I was singing a song about a killer manatee, so maybe it's better that they missed it.
Everything you just said is like why we're friends, because I remember, okay, so to our listeners out there, if you are listening, Ben, hi, we miss
Ben.
you. Sorry that you live in New York now, but Ben is really my best friend from high school. He went to college with Katie, and we would frequently like that's how us
Ben
two
and
were
I became
introduced.
housemates in college.
Yeah, Ben was the link, and so like when we all lived close to each other in the South Hills of Pittsburgh, I would go over to Ben's apartment, and I'm pretty sure that it was in Ben's apartment where we. Was that when you came up with the shing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we were
like-
just like kidding around. I don't know. I said something about shing, like meaning a knife, because I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
like the
speak
sound you
weirdly.
make when you pull a knife out of its holster, like shing.
Yeah,
and
think of like
yeah.
a katana. Like my original roommate in college had a katana that she kept in our room, and like would sometimes like take out and wave around. She thought I wasn't coming back to the room anytime soon. Sorry, Emily, if you're listening out there. And like the sound it would make when she yanked it out of its sheath was like a little shing.
But we're all sitting in Ben's apartment, like drinking or something, and you just straight up were like, "Oh, hold on, I gotta go grab my capo.
Yeah,
Hold
I
on,
literally
I have my
drove-
capo in my car. Let me go
drove
get it."
home, got my guitar, came
Yeah.
back, and we wrote this song "Shing" about this like guy who, I guess that is a male-centered song. I always assumed that the protagonist was male, but like it might be a female. I just always assumed that the character in Shing was male. But they're never actually gendered. But in the song, the character is originally like a law-abiding person who is helping fight vigilantes, but eventually is turned to the other side, becomes a vigilante themselves, and then rides around like killing people. So the song is basically like, stay away from me, I'm a killer, here's how I got this way.
We, meaning my fiance and I, reference this song constantly. Like
Yeah.
like if I'm cooking in my kitchen, no joke, I'll pull a knife out of the drawer and Bria's around the corner and goes, "Oh, shing! I whipped my slice out." Like just tell like
Shing,
there's something
I
about
got them all
your music and your personality and your goofy voices and words that makes me just obviously love you so much. But oh my god, I can't ad-lib like that. I wish I could. I mean, has that ever really gotten you out of a tricky situation when you've been performing live?
Like,
Have you ever just like improv'd your way out of a complete
think
and total nightmare?
like if I like forget the words?
Oh, that's what I would
something
be
and
terrified
then,
about.
like,
Yeah,
I'm trying to think of.
because I've seen you live a couple times now, and
Yeah.
I never know any different. Like you seem like you're having your shit together.
Yeah, I can't think of a specific time off the top of my head, which means it's probably happened, but like I've blocked it out. But I definitely like especially when these kids would be like, "Miss Katie, write me a song about blah," like, and it was like I had to kind of like think 5 steps ahead because I'm saying a word, and then like I'm like, oh please God, let me think of like a word that's gonna rhyme with this word for like a future line. But it has yet to like, knock on wood, really like bite me in the butt yet. So it's I don't know. I just think I've been very lucky to always land on my feet in the kinds of situations where I'm ad-libbing anything, or like I mean, I work a lot with people, so I think having a lot of like, I don't know, I always consider like charisma to be my highest score for statting me like a D&D character. I think that helps me in a variety of situations. But part of that is like, I'm on stage and now I'm like stage Katie Dee, so like,
Yeah.
I don't know, stage Katie Dee has like magic powers. I admire her.
Well, it's funny because, like, you have such a bubbly, extroverted personality, and I remember, like, I remember the first time we met at someone else's, but
Someone else's
at
bar.
someone else's
we
bar.
love someone else's bar.
Fantastic little local
Please
bar.
go to
Yeah,
Shannon.
support it. It's fantastic. But I have a tendency to be overly friendly with first-time people I meet, and then it turns out that worked out because that's just how you are too, kind
Yeah.
of. But like, oh, well, I can't put the words back in my mouth. I've already said them. Oh shit, what am I gonna do now? I was definitely taken by how friendly and personable you were, and then like 2 or 3 meetings later, Ben or somebody's telling me like, oh yeah, this is my friend that writes murder ballads, and I'm like, what is a murder ballad? And then you think about it, it's kind of morbid and gothic, and I mean, you do have a fake skeleton dog.
I have 2 fake skeleton dogs.
You do have fake skeleton creatures in your apartment, but I just see such a divergence between your outward personality and your children's librarian personality versus the stuff you write about. I mean, how do you deal with the kind of 2 personas?
I thank God every day that Tumblr invented the term pastel goth. I was like a quote-unquote true goth. Well, more like in the Victorian goth vein. When I was in 10th grade, I got really into, I was really into, obviously, like many people who were in middle or high school when the seminal AFI album Sing with Sorrow came out. I was super into that. Like, definitely had like this black duster with safety pins and band pins that I wore like constantly. Like, I got very into, like, I've always been kind of a morbid person. Like, one of the first songs I ever wrote that my parents told me about, that there's probably a tape of somewhere that I've never heard of, it was called Gone Now Megan, about like a fake person. I never had a friend named Megan who died by drowning in a river.
Okay.
So there's always been like I used to be obsessed with like scary stories, like so much so that my parents were like, we don't want to read you these stories anymore, like, you know, like Alvin Schwartz's Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Yeah.
Like, these are like things as a librarian I know are like very high on the banned books list. But like they were just like kind of disturbed by like having to read me these stories all the time. So there's always been like this morbid side of me, but like I'm also very into like, you know, like Maury Kay and like Lolita kind of like fashion, and like, you know, I kind of dress like a like combination between like a like costume jewelry covered old lady and like a little kid. I like to call it old lady child baby. But like there's always been like that part of me too. Like, yeah, I think that it's easy for me to say I can reconcile it because it's all me. But like, I don't know how it is like for people who don't know me and they're like, yeah, like you said, like you were kind of surprised that I wrote these things, or like that I knew some of the bands that you were talking about.
I was, yeah, I totally was. I think it's totally natural to have kind of a public you and a not public you. But I just remember really struggling with that in my teenage years, and you're like terrified to tell your parents that you have dark thoughts, as if not every single person in the world also can have dark thoughts. So I didn't want to put you on the spot there, but I just think it's very different than how you kind of present yourself. And
yeah, I think if I did present in like a more like traditionally like goth manner, I don't know if people would like want to approach me as much as they do, and that's something that I really do value. Like, I know sometimes it's weird when we're like hanging out and like random people like ask me for directions when like I don't even know where we are.
oh,
kind of
that's
thing.
me.
Like,
I get asked for directions even in states I don't
Yeah, even in
live in.
Germany, people would ask me for directions and stuff. Like, I'm not from here, though.
Sorry.
Yeah, like, I feel like being less outwardly dark helps me have a more positive rapport with strangers.
Fair enough. Fair
And
enough.
I don't feel like I'm a particularly dark person. It's just like, you know, I think everybody needs to acknowledge the light and dark within themselves. Like you said, like,
Yeah.
whenever you're a teenager and like, oh god, like, I'm the only person who likes these dark things, and like, you'll find out that, like, yeah, probably all your friends listened to Sing the Sorrow when you were in high school. It's just a matter of whether they were openly admitting it or not. Or if their parents let them have the Evanescence CD or not.
Well, that's so funny you mentioned that in particular, because I remember I had burned a mix CD that had Linkin Park, Bad Religion, and Evanescence on it. And the one time I was under the age of 16, so I was being driven somewhere with my mom. She's like, go ahead and throw a CD in the car. And I was like, oh, I happen to bring this one. And I, put in this mix CD, and Bring Me to Life starts playing. And she's like, what the hell is this? I'm like, Amy Lee? Like, a pretty gothic lady singing this beautiful song? Like, don't dump on me, Mom. Like, I just...
Like, our parents didn't have that growing up.
No, they didn't. They didn't. And I'm trying to think if I could go back in time to 1978 when my mom was 17 and be like, what are you listening to, Mom? Like, I don't know.
My mom and dad listened to, like, Bread, what's his name? The one from Canada.
The one from Canada.
The Guess Who, Neil Young. My mom was really into James Taylor. Like, more like
Mom loved
rock.
James Taylor.
Like, there wasn't something like that, I don't think, for people back then that were into, like, darker stuff. Like, there was, like, the goth music as we know it wasn't even, like, a thing until the early 80s, so...
Well, and then you think, after that all exploded, and, like, think about the whole moral panic with stuff like Marilyn Manson. I mean, granted, I was born in 1990, so when Tipper Gore had her whole thing about... no bad words.
What's a more gothic name than Tipper Gore, though? Like...
Oh, that's a great, like, death metal band name. Like, Tipper... I don't know. I gotta think on that one. I'm gonna make a death metal band based around Tipper Gore. But, you think about all these associations we have with music and how dark, like, what are we allowed to listen to? Or even the popular misconception, and I live this every day... The popular misconception that just because you listen to black metal or doom metal even, or funeral doom, like, hey, okay, you're allowed to feel sad. You're allowed to feel angry. You should feel sad and you should feel angry because there are things in the world that should make you feel sad and angry, and having a full range of emotions is what allows you to be a complete human and connect to your world. So I guess it all makes sense. Like, that's just how it is. I have a couple other questions, I guess, but the thing I wanted to ask you about, going back to the live performance aspect of things, is I know you've performed at the Deutschtown Music Festival, what, like 3 or 4 times now, or?
It's only twice, but it's
only
been
twice.
around for,
Okay.
like, I think 5 years, but I played twice.
Okay. That's a pretty big deal in Pittsburgh, I believe. I mean, that's like a full weekend thing. It has plenty of...
I think this year they had 325 bands play.
Wow.
So this was the biggest yet. I think every year it gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Is that part of your goal to try to keep playing like these larger festival style things, or what do you think for you is the best avenue for promoting your brand of music? And also, is there even really a following, like a large following with your style and your genre of music around here?
That's a good question. I mean, my absolute favorite place to play is Christhouse Brewery in Millville. I've been playing there. It used to be very close to my apartment at my old job. But I've been playing there basically since it started about 3.5 years ago. And, like, with that, like, the people that go, they're, like, super chill and open. And they've really been quite a receptive audience. And for things like that, knowing that I'm making that commitment to being there every month has really made me work on my songs and always try and make sure I had something new to show to them, whether it was like a new cover or like a new original piece. Like, it gave me like a built-in audience, and it set an artificial goal for myself that, like, these are the people, I have to please them, every month I have to give them something to listen to. So, like, I like to do that, and that's kind of like my routine that keeps me, like, musically progressing. And that's, I mean, they've been extremely receptive to the Gothic-Americana genre. But through that, I've played a couple of the other shows that I played this year were actually through the promoter I mentioned, Ms. Marcross, who is a poet who reads at that particular event, organized both the Walpurgisnacht concert at Garfield Art House and the Solstice show at Black Forge. Like, those people have kind of led me to playing at other venues because they appreciate my music, and because, so far as I know, please introduce yourselves if there are other Gothic-Americana musicians in Pittsburgh. I would really like to collaborate with you. But as my friend Tim, I hope that you're listening, and we actually met each other as rivals in middle school because we both rivaled to be the #1 German student every 9 weeks. So shout out to my friend Tim, who is a fantastic musician, and we played a variety of different open mics and things together in high school with his old band, and he now teaches guitar to kids. But when I was talking to him after I played my set at Deutschtown, because he came by, he said, Katie Dee, I really don't think anyone else is doing what you're doing. Like, it's really cool that you're doing this. So, like, while I know, like, it's not a niche genre, like, obviously there are many other Gothic-Americana bands in the world. Like, so far as I know, I'm one of the only, if not the only person that's, like, doing this specific genre in our specific place at this specific time.
I gotta get you hooked up with some other people. I would love, honestly, if somehow this could act as a platform for that.
If anyone wants to collab, but leave a comment or however you get in touch.
Get in touch with me, because I'll like kickstart your next album or something.
Yeah, so like I do like playing those big venues too. I mean, like I mentioned, I played the WYEP singer-songwriter competition last night. I wasn't the winner, unfortunately. Maybe next year. But like I was playing at Market Square, which is a huge like open venue with restaurants all around it. And there was a night market going on. The Pittsburgh Regatta was going on. The Pirates game was going on. A lot of people
foot traffic.
Heard my song that would never have probably come to see me otherwise. And, like, that was great. Like, the vibe I got from him was really great. Like, if you were one of those people who took a picture or video of me while I was playing, please tag me. Like, I recently started an Instagram for Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens, which is just the Quaking Aspens, specifically because, like, I was getting all these pictures of, like, me from my friends or my family, and I didn't want to keep spamming the, like, normal friends of mine who follow my regular Instagram with everything about my music and like the merch I was creating and like places I was playing, because I figured maybe not all like 300 of my Instagram followers care about this. So I was like, well, they can know about some of it, but here I'll also like finally brand something as Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens. And I thought, oh, probably no one will follow this, but like I got like almost 40 followers in the first week. So obviously people care about it, and I'm glad. And like through playing all these different smaller venues, mostly is where I meet people who like want me to work with them, like are really interested in what I'm doing. Like I like the like intimate spaces like that. I feel like my vibe is good for like breweries and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the gentlemen who also was competing in the contest with me last night told me about an open mic at an Irish pub, and he was like, you would really suit this, so like that's something I'm gonna explore. So there are a lot of smaller venues like that, like working like hopefully playing at some of the other like local breweries. But I think the festival thing is unique because you get, like I mentioned, people just coming by who maybe weren't planning to see you,
right,
and like now they are seeing you, and then maybe you can hand them a card or like sell them a t-shirt or something like that. So
I actually had your business card in my pocket, and I forget which show it was at recently, but I left it on a table somewhere for you.
Yeah,
I can't remember which show it was at, but I was like, I don't go to many shows where there's a lot of overlap with Goth-Americana, but I can sure as hell try.
Thank you. Yeah, it was cool because I took some shirts down to Deutschtown that I made to specifically raise money for, there was a big flood in Millvale recently, and I was able to send them like $60 worth of money from shirts because I wanted to give back to them, because Millvale's been an extremely supportive music community, both with Millvale Music Festival, and I got to play at the legendary Mr. Smalls.
That is true, you did. That is my favorite venue in
one
Pittsburgh, for sure.
to play at the newest part of Mr. Smalls.
Oh, did you play at the Fun House?
I played at the War Room. Well, now it's the coffee shop. It's the basement.
Oh, I didn't even know that there's that there too.
I was
there's
the first
so much
one.
stuff.
Yeah, so I was super thrilled about that. I definitely like to do both of those festivals again, but next year there's more that I'm going to apply to. I've been making a list of different ones around in like PA and Ohio, or like different like specifically folky stuff that's happening.
I mean, Western Pennsylvania is a weird place because sure, you have Pittsburgh here, but we're so close to more rural areas that I would just imagine, even as you head north towards Butler and stuff, I would just imagine that there's a lot bigger of a demand for folk music, for country music, just
Yeah.
stuff that the hustle and bustle of the city and like the metal scene's pretty big in Pittsburgh. I would think you would find an audience straight away. I mean, even I'm just thinking like you should go play at Big Butler Fair or something next year. That would be really fun.
I'd love to play at something like the Fort Anne Folk Festival, or like there's a brewery in the Harmony Inn up in Harmony.
Cool.
I think that would be a great venue. I love listening to the Bluegrass Jam session with Bruce Malchoy on WYAP, because he'll have at 9 o'clock, after an hour's worth of great music, a list of all the local like country and bluegrass artists that are playing at all the local venues where they're playing. So that kind of gives me some idea too about where in this region, especially in Western PA and Eastern Ohio, where, especially more north of us, where these kinds of artists are playing and like could possibly be places that might be interested in my music for the future.
Right. Oh man, I hope that works out.
Yeah.
That would just be good. Like, of course I love the fact I'll be able to say, you know, hey, when Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens make it big, you played your songs on a $15 plastic dog-shaped guitar from Target for us at your party.
I did. I played some vintage ones of mine too. Yes. I don't really kick around my like power pop twee ones anymore. I was actually playing some the other day. I bought, as a present to myself for getting a new job, I bought myself another guitar because it's what you do.
Nice.
But
nice.
This is a Daisy Rock guitar. It's a 3/4 size guitar. It's actually made for little girls specifically. I thought that was
so
really
you're going
cool.
back to your 13-year-old
guitar.
guitar.
Like it was like really what I needed when I was 13, and it's a woman-run guitar brand. And they do like guitars that are more sized for women and girls, and it has a white neck, and the bass is pink, and it's shaped like a flower, and it's like extremely cute. And I have a white and pink flower guitar strap that I already own that is perfect with it. So I think I may continue to work on some of my more twee stuff that is provisionally being billed as the Prague Spring, because nothing is ever just billed as Katie Dee, is it? But
wait, it's the what?
The Prague Spring.
Prague as in
Prague, the city.
The city,
this
not
is,
my brand of Prague.
Yeah, this is
Prague
going
Spring.
back to Prague.
Yes.
This is going back to, it's actually an historic event in the late 60s where there was an uprising against the Soviets in Prague, the
that
city.
Is so
and it was called the Prague Spring. Yeah, nerd.
I love it.
History nerd. So like, I still would like to do stuff with those songs, because when I was talking to my friend Erin a few months ago, shout out to Erin, she's amazing, and we love her.
Love you, Erin.
Erin, you're going to listen to this now. Well, I'm going to see her next week, which I'm psyched. But yeah, she was saying, like, we were talking about my songs that I used to play, like, in college and, like, shortly after, like, the more, like, twee power pop songs I was writing then. And even when you first met me, like, those were the songs of mine you were hearing. Like, I remember we went to that music meetup with all those strange people. And
oh, yes.
Yeah, no offense to them.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, and like I was telling them about my music and they were listening to it, but it was like, that was my last incarnation as just Katie Dee. But I was thinking about, I'd like to kind of resurrect that stuff and have it separate, obviously, from Katie Dee and the Quaking Aspens, but like, you know, I never try and cut myself off from any vein of like being creative. So like, I've been recovering a lot of like old like cassettes that I was working on in like college or high school. There's actually a new digital lab at the main Carnegie Library where you can actually convert.
Oh yeah,
like,
I remember hearing about that.
To MP3.
That
so
is
I'll be
cool.
working on that at some point in the future. That's a project I want to work on, recovering all those songs.
You're at the right place though in the music industry, because I mean, even just at the Black Forge benefit concert I went to, there were like 2 out of the 5 or 6 bands there I think had stuff on cassette. It's so strange, but it's so cool. I mean, there's just this very like DIY work ethic.
It's a more affordable medium too than like making an LP.
I guess
like,
that's true.
It would be sweet to like record an actual physical record, but like cost effective.
Oh, it's crazy, and that's making it such a comeback too.
Yeah.
But man,
I'm psyched about the next Black Forge venue.
Oh, I am too. That's gonna be a hell of a show and a hell of a place to see a show. But I was just amazed by that. There were so many cassettes there, and it's cool to see how in the music space, we're willing to go back in time and buy like an older form of media just to be able to support your favorite artist, and then it kind of becomes a collector's piece. Like, I don't have a lot of physical media, but I think if I did, I mean, I still mostly get CDs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of, you do have some CDs, right?
Yeah, I have hundreds of CDs. Like, and every time, like, a band that's really influenced me that, like, I don't think that I talk up enough is the Alkaline Trio. Who
yes.
are, I think it's very apparent if you, like, listen to my music and you also listen to Alkaline Trio, like, where a lot of my vibe is coming from, because they're an extremely dark, like, pop-punk band, originally out of Chicago, now based in San Francisco. But their stuff, like, I have, like, for instance, every time they make a new CD, I buy it because I have every CD they ever made. Or, like, every time AFI, like, especially the bands I love in high school, like, every time they make a new album, I'll physically buy it. MBD, Burn of Death, of course, like, the same thing. Every time they make a new album, I buy it because it's important for me to, like, support them, physically have the album artwork, too.
Oh,
like,
that's the best part. It's, like, what draws you in. You feel this physical connection to the song. It's kind of like the artist giving them a piece of, or giving you a piece of them.
Yeah,
I feel the same way.
Like, it's so important to me, like, buying merch, like, buying things related to the artist, but, like, the album artwork, that's something that's really lost in, like, the digital space. So, for me, with my number one top bands, like, it's super important for me to buy their physical material.
That is a great segue into the question that I'm going to probably just ask all of my guests now. If you could choose basically 3 albums that you had to be as your 3 albums you would listen to for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Great question.
Like either you get shipwrecked and you're stuck on an island with 3 albums, or you live in a hell world where you only have 3 albums to choose from.
Hell world.
Hell world.
I would definitely have, the first one that popped into my head is the Beatles album Rubber Soul, which is the mid-career Beatles, or the epitome of Beatles. I will argue with anyone who feels that any other Beatles period besides 1965 and 1966 were the best Beatles period. It's a great album. It's a great album. It's more like folky. It has a lot more storytelling on it than a lot of the other Beatles records. John Lennon had said around that time period when he started to be more honest in the songs that he was writing about trying to relate them to, like, his own life and emotions instead of just trying to make something more, like, commercial, like trying to make a hit. He moved away from trying to make a hit and more toward, like, telling stories. And Paul McCartney's always been, like, a phenomenal, like, songwriting storyteller, although, like, I'm not the hugest fan of his work outside of the Beatles, but I really respect, like, what he can do with telling a story. And, like, I've had that album since I was in middle school, and it's, like, it's still very listenable, and it's listenable in its entirety. Like, there's nothing I'm like, geez, want to skip it. The AFI album, The Art of Drowning, from 2000, which was their last release on Nitro before they, like, went to a major label, it's, like, the perfect amount of, like, both eras of AFI to me, because, like, AFI originally started out as, like, a hardcore band. There was a lot of, like, shouted, screamed vocals, and, like, you know, not as, like, lush instrumentation. So it has some of those, but it also has, like, some more melodic stuff. It's really good. A lot of it is, like, it's definitely a mood. Like, a lot of it is, like, screaming and, like, more dark, but it's, like, all of the songs are great. Again, there's, like, absolutely nothing I would skip on there, except I'd probably fast forward the, like, silent part and, like, to get to the hidden track. It's a great album.
The days of the hidden track.
Yeah, the hidden track. I only get one more. Katie Dee, choose carefully.
Yeah, I know. I feel like this is the hot seat question.
'Cause I have a couple, but I think I'll have to go with the third one that popped into my head, which would be, again, in my opinion, the epitome of Pink Floyd in their original iteration with the genius that was Syd Barrett. Their first album, 1967's Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
Ah, yeah. I'm just starting to delve into that.
Yeah, I'm
to make myself knowledgeable.
I'm a fan of British psychedelia, and, like, that album was, like, nothing I'd ever heard when I heard it, and I think I heard it when I was, like, 17. Like, this was again through the bassist Amy of my first band. Like, she was very into British psych. And she was like, oh, this is great. And I'd heard Pink Floyd's other stuff, which, like, no offense to them, I just wasn't really into. Dark Side of the Moon and that kind of stuff, just, I don't know, it wasn't speaking to me. But Hybrid the Gates of Dawn also has like some amazing storytelling on it as well. There's like some songs that are like outer space. Like it's very epic. It's like probably like what would they call it, like proto-prog or something like that.
I think so.
Like space stuff. There's like a lot of very whimsical stuff. There's a song about a gnome and a song about like the guy with a pet mouse. Like it's very like a lot of it's very like silly, but I love the like childlike aspect of it, and like tied into like the instrumentation is like really unusual. Like they use all these like weird like pioneering effects on it. Like basically, it's like I don't buy many records of CDs I already own, but this is a record that I like. I have it as CD and LP, and of course I have it on my iPod as well. And so it's like stayed with me like since I heard it. Like I mean, of course there's a million zillion runners up that I love that we'll not have time to mention, but another band that I just want to shout out because I get a lot of inspiration from, but again probably not really apparent on what I do, is Icelandic band Sigur Rós.
Yes, that's a thumbs up from me.
Yeah.
No, I'm not super familiar with them. But
yeah. Like, I'm really into that, like, more, like, slowcore, shoegazy kind of stuff. Which, yeah, it really doesn't come across in any of my music because I'm very, like, 3 chords punk rock and 3 chords country music. But I love that kind of stuff. And I think that kind of stuff also kind of harkens back to stuff like Pink Floyd's Piper at the Gates of Dawn. I think if we didn't have an album like that, we never would have had a lot of the stuff we have today.
Oh, post-rock and everything, that so much of the music comes from how you can manipulate the instruments you're playing and the effects you're creating, and it's almost more about the atmosphere than it is about the lyrical content or the emotion that they're trying to portray. That's an interesting take I've never heard.
Yeah, like...
Without proto-prog, we would not have post-rock.
That's my humble opinion. If I was, like, making a family tree of music, that would be a direct line.
Huh.
Like a lot of that psychedelia was like very like whimsical and sometimes kind of like silly and like, are you really going to outer space? But like, I mean, if you think about back when it was written, like that was like when it was the dawn of space flight.
Well, yeah, and like all like the Canterbury scene and all of the 60s, 70s prog. I mean, I'm just getting into that stuff now because I feel like I have to pay homage to it as a current prog listener. I need to know where it came from, and that's kind of what's striking me. Think about bands like Eloy and even Rush and stuff. Granted, I know that's a decade or two later, but yeah, it's like that level of storytelling, that was kind of the bright and distant future, and then everybody was excited about it at the time. Like, oh, holy shit, we can actually put a man on the moon. Yeah. Let's write some songs that are kind of about that.
We can have a satellite that orbits the Earth and like live broadcasting. Like they were living in the future.
I never really thought about that. Like, why did the 60s become this hotbed of psychedelic music and all this stuff? But I guess you just kind of look at what's going on around you.
There's the history nerd.
Yeah, I'm trying. I gotta bring more of the music history, music stats out. Let me ask you one more thing then.
Absolutely.
Do you have... Well, I know you love to travel. You've been to lots of different countries, but is there anything that you've seen while you've traveled abroad that you're like, man, I gotta bring back some, I don't even know, like something that you would want to incorporate into your own style?
Yeah, I think that goes all the way back to when we were talking about like the foreign folk music. Like, I mean, obviously I studied German like for most of my life, and like my dad speaks German, so like I was exposed to German from like since before I could remember. For as long as I've been exposed to music, I've also been exposed to German.
Okay.
And like I've studied
Rammstein,
German.
that's all I can contribute to this conversation.
I studied German formally for like 12 years and majored in it obviously, and like spent a lot of time there. Read a lot of like stuff in German, but yeah, basically like you think, I mean, you know, everybody thinks of like Oompa bands and things like that in Germany, but like their tradition, like if you like listen to like German and like Austro-Hungarian like classical music, and like I was talking about the Lieder being like the first emo music, like the German music in all of its forms, including like the silly Oompa music, is always like been something I felt like drawn to. And Germany, does have a really interesting like industrial music scene.
Yeah.
Like Kraftwerk and things like that, and like Rammstein, and like Germany has their own kind of like, correct me if I'm wrong, like industrial metal.
I think so.
Scene.
I mean, I actually think of when I think of German bands, this is probably sacrilege, but I think of the band We Butter the Bread with Butter.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that song?
I have.
That band? Yeah. That is like electro gent core. I don't even know how to describe that, but it's utterly bizarre and avant-garde and
or like the German
very German
one-hit wonder group Nena from the 80s who did 99 Luftballons. That whole album is really great. If anyone hasn't, that's one of the first CDs I ever bought. Like, if you never sat down to listen to the whole album, there's this song about a lighthouse called Leuchtturm, which is just like an amazing, like, I'm not a fan of 80s rock. Like, we have a good friend who's really into 80s rock, Amanda. But like, I'm really personally not into like 80s
Alan Parsons Project.
Yeah. It, like, this is a whole album I can get behind, and it's in German, so it's like a secret trick for me that I get to also understand what they're saying. I remember my friend Ed buying a Rammstein CD when we went to Germany in high school, and he was just bopping around, and like, he had one earbud over the CD player, and I had the other earbud over the CD player, and I understood what they were talking about, and he didn't, and I was like, hey Ed, this is about like this guy murdering people and sticking them inside of a piano.
Just thought you should know.
Yeah. So I mean, I've always really like, although I like am not German at all. Spoiler alert. I have always like been really like drawn to like the culture because I think there's not that language barrier.
Do you have any other questions for me? I think I have everything covered.
Let me think. Who would be your dream guest on this podcast?
Oh my god, my dream guest. You'll probably like my answer, and it's probably incredibly cliche, but I really truly would love to have Rhodey Walker, the lead singer of Protest the Hero, just because I feel like he's built up as this personality that, I mean, I've seen them live 6 times. They're my favorite band. You craft this image of a musician in your head as like almost not a person, that they're this larger than life arena rock persona, and based on his Instagram and everything else, you know, he's just a regular dude. He goes and gets a tattoo, has a beer, loves hockey, whatever. Like, I would like to knock down some more of those barriers and get to know my guests as a person and understand what music means to them. And that's why I wanted to start off with people I already knew, because it's much easier to eliminate that, oh my god, you're a musician, you're just like this super cool celebrity, even if you're not a celebrity at all. It's so much easier to knock that down when you can kind of throw that line out there and really understand what's at the heart of the person making this music. And I don't know. Yeah, he would probably be my number one. I mean, I have a list of like stretch guests someday. We'll see where this takes me, but for now, I just like getting the candid.
That is interesting. Stuff. I mean, I guess it's just me as a musician. I've never felt like that about other people that play music. I don't know, some people have like these magical experiences where they go to shows, and I wish I could say that was me, but like, I'm always just like, hey, I get up there on stage and play music. Like, I may not be as talented as the people that are on stage, or as known, or like have as cool of merch, but like, there are also people that get up on stage and play music. I don't know, to me, I wish that magic was there. Like, I get that more if it's like authors, like, you know, in my field, like I got to meet one of my favorite childhood authors a few years ago, Bruce Coville, and another favorite author of mine in like my middle grade years, Lemony Snicket. Like, when I met them, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm like meeting like the most important person. Because it's like something I don't do is like write books, and like it was something that was very impactful to me. Like at that age, I mean, like if like John Lennon came back to life, I would probably get like hero worshipy over someone like him. But like to me, like all my favorite musicians are my favorite musicians. But like, I feel like as a musician, like, we would have a lot to talk about. And you're a musician too. I think you have a lot to talk about with any musician.
I am, and that's why I started the show, because really I started talking to some musicians that I really admire, and then you learn, it's not even that you learn, it's just you get slapped in the face with the fact that they're people too. Like, they're going through the same shit in their relationship and having trouble with their self-esteem and worrying about what they're going to pack for lunch tomorrow too. They aren't really any different, and I hate the whole cult of personality, celebrity worship thing that we have going on in this world, but then it's really easy to fall victim to it too. But perhaps in the music community, because you're sort of already playing off this common thread. Like, this is the thing we really both enjoy. Where can we go from there? And some people, you never make a good connection with them. It's just kind of like, well, okay, yeah, we listen to the same bands, and that's about it. But then every so often I really find people that I can talk to about more than just that. Here I am sitting here talking to you just about music, but not, though. It dives off into so many other things, and
it's a cultural touchstone. I mean, ever since humanity's existed, so far as I know, music, the two things that have always
so far as I know, Katie, the omniscient...
Yeah, I'm not actually a vampire or anything. But so far as I can tell, the things that have always existed have been, like, religion/mythology, folk tales, and music.
Right.
Like, it seems like the first things a lot of cultures create for themselves. It's it's a community building thing.
It is, yeah, or even in some cases, community building in the sense that it's communicative. Like, you may have had to learn music to be able to communicate with a platoon of soldiers, or communicate your location somewhere, or send a signal or something. And I think the anthropological connection to music is really fascinating too. And I would probably talk to you for another 3 hours about that, but I cannot tonight.
Yeah, another time.
But yeah, that would be a cool thing to explore. But I think that's a good place to wrap up.
Hey, thank you so much for inviting me to be on the show.
I'm very glad you agreed. I would have you on again in a heartbeat. So I'll make sure to tell everybody where to find your stuff after the cut. But
good night, everyone in Radio Land. I appreciate you listening.
All right, thank you, Katie Dee. Until next time.
Upstate in the electric chair, but each spring I take a bouquet and my heart full of lead.
If you'd like to hear more of Katie's music, you can find her at noisetrade.com/Katie Dee. That's Katie with a K. You can also find her on Instagram under the_Quaking_Aspens. Till next time.